Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Super Tease video. And in this one, we're going to be doing a deep dive into the rework and update for Frost Deathknights in 11.2. What does it ultimately mean for you? What are going to be the pros of it? What are going to be the cons for it? Seems like mostly pros and mostly improvements, though, thankfully, for Frosty K's, because it seems like you guys just didn't really get a lot of attention, and it's kind of ramping up to be maybe your patch. And it really hasn't been your patch for some time, right? Usually you come out, you're really strong, and then you get heavy nerf bat hammered, and I'm wondering if they're finally willing to let you be the spec on top after so long of neglect. Now, the first order of business for Frost Deathknight in this patch is that they are basically making a lot of your cleave a lot easier to achieve, with Frost Scythe having more interactions with shattering certain tethers, so you don't have to inconveniently, interweave obliterates into your burst. Razor Ice is going to apply a lot easier to targets for cleave, and I think that this is likely most going to be impactful in PvE. This is going to be in dungeon environments. They've smoothed out your rotation. Glacial Advance is baseline. A lot more spells just can proc Glacial Advance on the target, which can apply Razor Ice. This is going to make it very smooth and buttery, reduce the amount of tab targeting that you need to do. And from all the research that I've done from PvEers, they're very happy with this. This is definitely eased up their rotation, made it a lot more smooth, a lot more buttery to play in that regard. When it comes to PvP, and this is a little bit of overlap with PvP and PvE, Anti-Magic Zone is going back to just being a flat-out magic damage reduction, but it's only 15%. Now, in raid environment, that's really good. Possibly even Mythic Plus environment, that's really good. They're trying to give you that unique utility back in order to make you a more of like a viable spec to bring into the raid. Like, this is the reason that we have a Death Knight along with Chains of Ice, and Death Grip, which usually only has like one cheesy mechanic. Unfortunately, Abomination's limb, though, was pruned. It was removed for Frost. It's going to be unholy only, so we're losing out on that, but we are getting Anti-Magic Zone back. We're having our rotation smoothed out for cleave. When it comes to single target, they've changed Icebound Fortitude to be, or Empowered Rune Weapon, sorry, what am I saying? Icebound Fortitude. Empowered Rune Weapon to a 30-second recharge. Now, Balanced Druid had something very similar to this done with Incarnation, where we got multiple charges of it. It was a lower cooldown, and this had big impacts as far as viability in PvP, but I can imagine also in dungeons being able to go pull to pull and just having an immediate way to be able to juice up your character. So this is the one that really caught my attention as far as potentially increasing your viability basically in all content, is that you're gonna have to be a lot more consciously thinking about this, as opposed to kind of just pressing it once and then putting it in the back of your mind for a while later on. So this is really nice quality of life change. This has had big impacts on classes improvements for reworks in the past, so I would imagine that this is likely going to give you a really big benefit in this patch as well. So you might have, if you're a PvP main, you might have been thinking, oh my god, it's just all extra AoE damage and cleave damage, which it's not going to matter too much, but Empowered Rune Weapon changes like this is definitely going to matter. One that I'm still on the fence and uncertain about is Breath of Sindragosa, because before, you weren't really taking this in PvP. It was just such a resource consumption. It wasn't very good pull to pull in dungeons. It's now got the empowered system where you can like charge it up for a big attack. And the main advantage that I've seen from this is that when you use it at one charge, it gives you a significant cooldown refund, so that you can basically get it synced up with a lot of your other more powerful cooldowns. So I'm curious to see if it ends up being played. Has the empowerment charge up time. It's still uncertain as to how much damage it's going to do. I think that tuning is likely going to be ongoing. We already saw in the first pass when they introduced the Shadow Priest rework how like quickly and heavy-handed they brought that down. So I think as far as tuning, this is something that you're going to want to test as things go on, and we'll be relaying those changes as well to you with updates. So if you want to make sure that you're staying in the know, make sure to smash that subscribe button. But I do think it is kind of a tuning thing. The things that you can definitely count on are cooldown oriented stuff, right? Imagine how good Outlaw Rogue was when it had its cooldown reduction, and then it got nerfed, and then it's fallen completely into obscurity, right? Anything related to cooldown reduction is always going to be very powerful. It's going to be very potent. But the main things to take away, I'll show you how it plays now and kind of how it feels, is that they've tuned up a lot of your damage spells, and again, that's subject to change, but that's likely going to feel good. They've basically made a lot of your other buttons interweave a lot better with each other, so it's a lot smoother gameplay. Hopefully it's going to be less feast and famine than it was last patch, where it's like cooldowns are up, you're very scary. Cooldowns are down, you're not very scary. I'm hoping they can get away with that, with the fact that they're lowering the empowered rune weapon changes. One thing that might suck a little bit is that basically they have a talent where Pillar of Frost will activate Remorseless Winter for you, and it replaces it. It unfortunately completely destroys the Death's Cold Embrace, because that was the advantage of it, is that it granted you Remorseless Winter. So I feel like they just introduced this talent and they're already destroying their own PvP talent. They are doing some PvP talent revamps, but it seems like they're focusing on tanks and rated BGs. So I feel like they got to do a little bit of tidying up with that, because this is going to have significant overlap, right? This replaces Remorseless Winter. This grants you Remorseless Winter when you Pillar of Frost. They're effectively the same effect, so it doesn't really seemingly make a lot of sense anymore. It just comes with downside for the most part, as opposed to upside with it. So hopefully they'll be able to update that. Maybe we'll see some PvP changes there into the future. But when you're attacking the monster, it still feels very similar, right? You get stacks of Razor Ice. You use Obliterate procs when you get them. You smash for massive damage. You spend Runic Power with Frost Strike. There's not really a lot of changes there. Where the changes come in is when you're using Empowered Rune Weapon and you're using your Pillar of Frost, because you'll see that they're just a significantly lower cooldown, right? You're going to have to actively be managing them, but it's still the same gameplay of just getting your stacks up, spending your stacks, pressing buttons that light up. There's not really a lot of change there, other than that it seems like they might be more willing to give you viability in this patch. Maybe it's finally the patch where DKs won't suck or something like that for Frost DKs, but the gameplay hasn't really changed. So I covered the changes and I was like, oh, this is like a massive thing. But at least in a PvP situation where you use Obliterate and Frost Strike, and you're using more of a single target focused rotation, not really going to see much change. I'm curious if at all for like a Frost Scythe option in PvP, but I would kind of doubt it. I just feel like Glacial Advance, its damage is not chunky enough, generally speaking, to be able to hold HP bars down with how high healing generally is in PvP. So it's my anticipation that this is more or less going to be the same. They make quality of life improvements that you can shatter Trollbane's Chains of Ice as well, which is nice for the Riders of the Apocalypse. It seems like basically all the PvE players are very happy, and they feel like the feedback was listened to and it was very responsive in that regard. Maybe we'll get some of that as well in communication for PvP. Maybe I'm just on the full hopium. I don't know at this point. But I definitely think it's an improvement from the previous patch for Frost DKs, and likely it means that you're still going to continue to get some attention. And this really just this cooldown, like you can see that it's just so much more gameplay with this cooldown reduction oriented around Empowered Rune Weapon, and then obviously Pillar of Frost as well. That was already there. That just gives you a little bit more to look forward to, as opposed to just running away during your goes in a PvP situation. So it gives you a little bit more to look forward to while retaining the same effective gameplay, possibly opening up some alternatives for Breath of Sindragosa. They obviously have new set bonuses that seemingly are very strong as well. Pillar of Frost will now guaranteed summon Trollbane, who had all those quality of life improvements. He'll be doing 10% increased damage. His Obliterate will be doing 35% increased damage. And casting Obliterate or Frost Scythe will order Trollbane to also cast Obliterate or Frost Scythe alongside you at 100% effectiveness. This is really strong. This is just direct damage to Obliterate. And that's your main damage source right now, at least in PvP. So really strong set bonus for Riders of the Apocalypse. When we switch over to Deathbringer, you'll see that your set bonus also changes. There's basically 2 set bonuses now for every class in the patch, so you want to be aware of that if you didn't know that moving into it. For this one, casting Reaper's Mark grants 1 stack of Exterminate with 150% first Scythe and the 125% second Scythe effectiveness. Reaper's Mark can stack up to 15 additional times and increase your critical strike chance by 10% after it explodes. So I do kind of want to see how Reaper's Marks performs. I haven't been able to get details to work on the beta for some reason, or on the PTR, whatever we're calling this at the moment, but you can see it's just got massive stacks. You get a lot of Frost Scythe animations. We're getting a lot of shatters. You can see we can shatter it now with Frost Strike. We're getting Glacial Advance procs. Honestly, the animations on Reaper's Mark look so sick. Like I really prefer Reaper's Mark visually to the Riders of the Apocalypse, which is kind of hard, right? It's hard to compete with the Riders. Those guys have been going hard for a while. But when you have that Reaper's Mark up, you feel really strong. You have a lot of options. Basically just a lot of extra cleave, basic improvements for PvE and likely damage tuning that is hopefully going to make you more viable. Now, obviously, DK viability also is a little bit interdependent on the viability of other classes, at least when it comes to PvP. If warriors are still very strong and it's still a lot of cleaves that are kind of running you down, you may obviously struggle in those types of environments. But overall, it feels like it's trending in a direction where they're paying a lot of attention to Frost Decay. So if you have some feedback regarding it, I think now is the time to submit that feedback. It seems like they are more responsive to forum feedback at the moment, which is great. So definitely consider it if you're a Frost Decay main. Obviously, I'm not a Frost Decay main. I've spent a little bit of time with it. I wanted to do a little bit of a deep dive into it. For this patch, I wouldn't say that it's as exciting as the Shadow Priest one, at least with like all the visual changes and core components that they're adding. But it's nice that they're responsive. They're relaying with feedback with the community. There's some interesting things to try and experiment with that are hopefully going to be tuned in a way that are viable. And like I said, the core thing is this cooldown reduction. This is likely going to be the engine, the catalyst for your potential viability moving into this patch. But that's basically it here for the update for 11.2 for Frost Decay. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.